My plan is to run through in real time, but as quickly as possible, a simple piece from start to finish. So I just cut out a 20 gauge disc in copper. First thing I'm going to do is take, this is 100 grit sandpaper, and I'm just going to rough it up. Then I'm going to wipe the surface with alcohol. Get some denatured alcohol on my Q-tip. Try not to get more fingerprints on it. Now I would have already thought ahead. If I wanted holes in this, I would have punched them before this step. And if I wanted to solder either a pin back or a bail on the back, I would do that before this step. But this is the one I'm going to try to use for a tab setting tutorial, so no holes, no bails. So after I clean it with alcohol, I take my white gesso. This doesn't say white on it, but I made the mistake of finding out it was white when I saw this and thought, oh, that must be my clear because it doesn't say anything. So I grabbed this other bottle and used it, not realizing that that was clear. So this is the white. I don't like clear. It's too gritty. So I shake it up and put a little bit on my brush. And then just start brushing in one direction. And I press fairly firmly because I don't want a thick coat. When I see heavy lines, I try to go over them. I will be doing a second coat after this first one dries. That's pretty good for now. I'm going to go stick this in the dehydrator. If you don't have a dehydrator, this would be your, you would be waiting like a few hours to let it dry. If you do a really thick coat, you gotta wait longer to dry it. So I do a thin coat, dry it, and then I do a second thin coat and dry it. While my dehydrator is going, what I do is I take a template that has the same shape as my piece, and I sketch out a circle, and then I can take my design templates and try out different things. For this this sample or design idea, I just used graduating marquee shapes and started putting them on. For this one, I just took my, found a template with this shape and put it into the circle, and went over the outlines to test and see. This gives me a really good visual idea. Sometimes what my brain thinks is going to happen or something's going to look like isn't really how it ends up. So as much pre-testing of design that I can do, the better. So once I see that, I'm like, yeah, that'll work. So then after that, the next thing I want to do is pick my colors. One of Jan, I think, was mentioning, and I don't know if I'm pronouncing your name right, something about bright colors and how I pick them, and basically I just really like bright, saturated, vibrant colors. Sometimes I like muted colors, earth tones. It's a mood thing, so just whatever you feel like. And you've got your palette of pencils. So what I like to do is I like to use pencils for the advantage that they have over a lot of other mediums, which is the blending potential. So I'm going to pick like maybe 4 colors here, 4 color groupings. So I would have 1 color there, maybe 1 color for the little parts, 1 color for the big parts, and 1 color for the background. But when I say 1 color, it really means 2 colors blended together. So I take my pens, I take a first color that I think I might want to try, and I just make a little mark on my paper, and I go, yeah, that's a good hue, I like that. And then I think, what color would go well with that as far as blending goes? So I want something, for me, this is how I do it. You guys, I mean, do it any way you want. I'm just telling you how I do it, to get you, maybe get the ball rolling. I think what would blend well with green, but still be different enough from green that it would make a good effect. So I pick some kind of a green yellow, and I see that they are different enough and yet similar enough to blend, but different enough to have an effect. So the next thing I want to do is say, what would really contrast well with a bright, vibrant green? And it's usually a nice, intense blue. Again, I want to find a color that will blend well with that blue. If I pick a really light blue, it's in the same family, it'll blend well, but it's still contrasty enough to the dark blue that it will show the effects. Now that I've got those two, and I think you may be sensing a theme here with the primary colors, yellow, blue, and green. I mean, yellow, blue, and red. And even though I picked green, you can see it blends with yellow, so we're still getting the sort of primary color thing going on. I mean, we have a myriad of red colors. I could go brick red, oriental red. This is more of an orangey red, and for contrast I'm going to pick a yellowy orange. So those are that's the color palette I'm going to work with. It's just 6 pencils, and I don't really have a definitive idea of what I want to use where, but that's where I just end up going for it. So while my piece is still dehydrating, I've got my design. I can actually prepare by sharpening my pencils. I use a two-step pencil sharpener. You can see there's a number 1 and a number 2 there, and here's how it works for anybody that hasn't used one. Step 1 is just going to take away the wood part. It's only shaving the wood. We're not dealing with the lead yet. So I go in and I do this until it feels like it's not going anymore. Once there's no more wood going, then I take the pencil out, and I want you to see what it looks like. So can you see that? Okay, now I'm going to put it inside too, and it's only going to be sharpening the lead, and it's kind of the opposite. In this one, you feel the wood going away until you don't feel any more pressure. That's when you take it out. This one, you actually don't feel anything at first, and you keep turning, and then you'll feel the lead catch, and you do it until you don't feel anything anymore. And it comes out about as sharp as a pencil can be. So I'm going to do that to all 6 pencils, and then I'll get the piece out of the dehydrator. We'll put the second coat on together. Okay, I'm ready to put my second coat of gesso on this piece. You guys are asking me what kind of brushes I use. To reiterate, I'm kind of pathetic with paying attention to that. What I do is I just buy brushes at thrift stores or in group packs from discount stores, and when I need a brush, I just go and grab any brush out of the lot. I might, if I need to do fine detail work, I might pick one with a pointy tip. If I have a large piece, I might pick one that has a broader surface, but I really, unfortunately, am not paying too much attention to what the bristles are or what the size is or anything. So what does this say? Craft Smart, and it says number 4. I'm sure that means something to somebody, but so it's just the one I'm using today happens to be look like that. I can't describe it anymore because I don't know anything about brushes. Okay, shaking up the gesso. Gonna put some on my brush. And since I went this direction before, now I'm going to go this direction. Now I can, if I feel any ridges or anything weird, I could sand off a little bit, but I'm not going to because I don't feel anything weird. And if I do any sanding, it's generally, for me, after this, when I'm done completely with gesso. So it would be after the second gesso. After the second gesso has dried. What you see me doing now is just going over any fat lines that I see. So I can still see crosshatch because that's just the nature of the beast, but I don't see any big fat lines. I know it's kind of hard for you to see this. I'll see if I can take a close-up photo. I'm going to go stick this into the dehydrator, and then we're going to come back and start coloring. Okay, we're back with our dried piece now. Oops, where's my glasses? And I can inspect it, and it's pretty flat. If I felt ridges, I could take some 1000 sandpaper and go over it a little, but I don't have any ridges. So that does not mean that I won't see some of the texture, but it is what it is. Now, since we've been having some controversy regarding the use of Sharpie pens, for now, we're just going to go with pencils, just straight pencils. Now, if I use a black pencil for my outline, any blending that I do, I still have to stay away from the outline. So you would treat it the same way as if you used Sharpie. So the first thing I'm going to do is get my outlines of my, and you might have a design that doesn't have outlines. Mine just happens to. Okay, now see these crumbs? You can take any brush that you have dedicated to crumb removal, and I actually ended up using my crumb removal brush for gesso, so I'll use a different brush. I'm actually going to go, this is too small. I'm going to show you the kind of brush I use for crumb removal, and it happens to be it's not a particular brush, like one particular dedicated brush. It's the same type. It's a type of brush. It's the type. So it's these ones with more flouncy edges. It just covers more ground. I use it for anything that I need to get rid of crumbs. When I'm sawing, I use it to get rid of crumbs. Sometimes when I'm grinding. So just I don't know what they are, what I call a flouncy brush. Okay, we've got our outline, so now I'm going to start, and I haven't decided which colors to use where. I really only have two big parts. That's these leaves and then the background. The things that are otherwise, they're really pretty small. So maybe what I'll do is I will say these can be for the large leaves. These will be for the background, and I'll just do blue for the other things, and I'm not going to use the light blue because there just isn't that much blending room. So I'm going to start with that, and I'm doing a really soft coat. I wish you could feel how soft I'm going, softly. Some of these small ones, they're kind of closed up like that. Got that one. So I just put blue where I can, and if it's closed up, there's nothing I can do. That's just going to be part of my design. Okay, so that's the first, and you can tell I did it softly because there's like nothing worn on the pencil. So now we're going to get into the, let's do the four front leaves first. When you have two colors, you generally start with the lighter color. And I like to do this, start with a lighter color. I'm sure there are other technical reasons, but I like to do it because then I can sort of go all over the piece, and I can add the darker color on top of the lighter color instead of having actual breaks. So I'm going to take my light greenish yellow, and if I see a crumb that doesn't belong there, now because I used black pencil instead of black Sharpie, this will probably have a slightly different effect from what you have seen. Oops. Seen me do. I'm getting black pencil smeared in there, but in the past, but in the end, I want the black pencil on top of black Sharpie anyway, so this just cuts out the middleman. Again, I'm going very, see if this is how soft I'm going, softly on the pencil. This would be if I was going hard. You can see the huge difference. Now here I feel with the pencil lead a little bit of roughness in the gesso. That's fine. I'm not going to worry about it. Okay, so I've got my first layer of light yellow-green down. Now I can take my darker green and just, again, lightly, but what I want to do is I want my accents in the, let's just, I usually do the corners, but the corners of these flowers are off, so I'm just going to go with the center. And again, I'm just doing a light. Now, this one didn't sharpen very well, but I'm too lazy to redo it. Just a little bit. I'm not really blending yet. I'm just layering, which layering is actually a form of blending. But let's just say I'm not blending the place where the two colors meet, which would be like there. So just adding a little, and I can actually, it's very apparent that this pencil is not sharpened properly. but I'm just dealing with it. Only 2 more to go. Okay, just looking up at the video monitor, make sure that I'm actually working within the realm of the camera lens. I can't actually see what I'm filming at the same time. Okay, so that's my first layer of the petals. Now I'm going to do my first layer of the background. So these are my 2 colors. I'm going to start with the lighter color. I think I'll go in opposite directions, so I'll keep the lightest in the center and have the darker red be on the outside. We'll see how that looks. So that means that when I put down my yellow-orange, I actually don't even have to go all the way to the edges, because that's really where the red is going to be. But I can go pretty far. And hopefully you really get the impression of how lightly I'm going. I mean, maybe you can tell by the way I hold the pencil. Basically, it's just laying in my hand, and my thumb is just being used to, can you see my thumb? Yeah. My thumb is just being used to steady it, to keep it in my hand, but there's no pressure. It's just laying there, and I'm just running it across. And I can go in little circles if I want, and it depends on, you know, where I am and what ground I want to cover. So, once in a while, a crumb from particularly the black pencil will get involved. I'm not going to stress about it. Also remember, this is our first layer, so almost done. Don't forget to stay hydrated. You don't want to get so wrapped up in your work that you don't take care of yourself. Okay, so we have the first, let me see if I can bring this up. The first layers of color. Oh, I forgot the red. Sorry. Let me go back. So now we take our red orange, and with this I have to be really careful because I'm kind of like getting a feel for the pencil first. I can tell that it's going to make a big difference. Let's see. Probably should have picked the light blue for these, but it's okay. And I have to decide like how far I want to go up. So with the darker colors, what I was saying about preparing is with the darker colors, it's really, really important to go light, because they can come out quite dark if you're not careful. And it's just better to build that darkness, that saturation, I think. Now, can you see this? Where I've put the red up here, you can see that I can see the texture of the gesso. I'm going to get a close-up with my cell phone just in case. I can't tell how well this video camera does close-ups. Let me get a close-up of that with my cell phone, because I can see the texture behind the red, and I just want you to know that I think that's okay. I mean, it doesn't bother me. Now, We can try to get rid of it a few ways if you don't like it. One will be when we're burnishing with our pencils, so we might be able to see some of it go away. After the burnishing, there are different blending methods. Oh, I should be doing this at the same time. Now, see how that got darker? That's because I went in and I hadn't like primed my hand for soft touch. So I ended up getting a little bit of a darker touch there, but it's okay. I mean, we're still fairly light. But we can lose some of that gesso texture with some of the blending techniques. And even though I did the blending videos, I will do some more blending videos because I just feel like there might be still some more questions. Now when we start putting our second and or third layer of colored pencil on here, you will start to see massive difference. This is again just like a feather touch, just a feather touch. There's no way possible you could be removing your gesso with this first layer because you're just like the pencil is breathing on the piece. Okay, so got all my pencil colors first layer done. Now we're going to go in and at this point I think I'm going to go ahead and go over the black lines, so let me sharpen my black pencil again. Okay, so this probably takes a steadier hand than I have, and I could probably put the stencil over it and trace the outlines again. Now, the harder you press, you will start making more crumbs. So get your flouncing brush ready. And I'm okay if my piece, my lines aren't perfectly straight, perfectly shaped, perfectly curved, whatever. This is not supposed to look like a machine-made piece when you're done. So I don't know if you can tell, but I am using more pressure. I'm going harder. This is second layer. And sometimes with my second layer, I just go straight to burnishing. We'll see how I feel when I do the actual shading colors rather than this outlining color. And I don't know where I started. That looks like about it. And I'm wondering if I could switch to the light blue. Let me just see what happens if I use some light blue. Now I'm actually pressing like burnishing, pressing. So pressing harder. I like this light blue better. Could stand to sharpen my pencil, but okay. Got my little blue accents in there. All right, so we're gonna, where's our yellow? Okay, we're gonna start on the petals. I'm gonna go in the same order that I went in before. Now I'm going a little bit harder with my pencil, and as I get up into where the dark green is, we're actually using blending techniques. Now you can see in this petal I got some minute black crumbs from the black pencil. I'm not going to worry about it. One thing about burnishing, or when you start putting a more forceful layer in, is you do have to, I'm not using full force, I'm actually just using a little bit more force than I did before. But either way, and especially when you're using full force, there is always the potential for to create a bald spot, which is basically when you've rubbed so hard that you remove the wax from the surface, and those are hard to fix. But there are things you can do, like sometimes you can spray fixative and then color again. Kind of doing second and third layer at the same time here. So I'm going over the green, or over the yellowish green with a medium touch, and then continuing over it again with a heavier hand. So kind of second and third layer at the same time. Another way to try to fix a bald spot is to just like sand a little bit, reapply gesso just in that area, and sort of start over. Because if you've had a bald spot, you'll know it's like there's nothing you can do to get pencil on there again. So again, I'm going medium, and then straight after medium, I'm adding a little bit of burnishing pressure. What you see me doing here is getting rid of any color that my pencil tip might have picked up by being like next to the black or something. Okay. All right. That was our yellow green. Now we're going to switch to the darker green and try to get some blending effect, because we want colors that blend. And as I press harder, I see that the green and the green yellow aren't too drastically different. At this point, I could actually pick a darker green if I wanted more contrast. Let's see how that works. Let me find that. So I go into my drawers and pick a green that looks like it might work, and I have to sharpen it. I'm right-handed, so I'm using the pencil in my left hand. Go until I don't hear the wood anymore. See the funky shape? Go in here. I'm not going to feel anything at first. Then I hear the lead grinding, and that's it. As soon as I hear wood or feel a difference. Okay, so let's see what this one is like. Okay, that's a little more contrast, so I like that. There's a difference between this dark green and the lighter, and that's what I wanted. So I'm not pressing too hard, but I am getting some color down, and I might use a stump to blend. I haven't actually decided how I'm going to blend yet. So many options. Now where I have already kind of burnished with that medium green, I'm surprised that I can get this color on at all, because once you've burnished, it's really hard to get any more pencil on. Now the only downside that I'm feeling to my design right now is that this green is, the blue in there is just not, it's not distinct enough, but it'll do. Like in hindsight, I might have made this circle there larger so that more blue would show, but I was following the stencil. So okay, now I want to blend the dark green and the yellow green. So I'm actually going to take my blending pencil and clean it off because it looks like the last thing I used was red. Maybe I'll sharpen it too. And we'll just see how it goes with the blending pencil. If you don't have a blending pencil, you can use a stump. You can use the pencils themselves, like I could take and just lightly kind of smear them together. See how that makes a blending thing? I could do that with the lighter color. Or I can take the blending pencil, which kind of does the same thing. We're smearing the waxes and blending them. When you blend, you will generally find that you're diluting the darker shade. That's the expense, but what you gain is a nice blending effect. Okay, now we're going to go to the background. So where am I? Okay, I'm confused. What colors I used. Oh, did I? I guess I did use this color. Okay. It looks very yellow there, but I guess it was this yellowy orange one. So I'm going to start now throwing down the yellow orange with a little more pressure. Now, although I am working with this design that has all the lines, if I only worked with colors and blending, it would be much easier. When you have defined lines, you really have to do a concentrated effort job of staying off of adjoining lines. Like right here, I have to like stay off of the black line there. And that might not be something that you always want to concentrate on. So we will go over a piece that is just pure color blending without worrying about staying off these lines. So this is just one way of doing it. There are other ways. This is like with a pattern or a particular design, but you can have even more abstract, just color things going on. So you can see as I put more pressure, my piece is becoming more saturated. I do want to always keep in mind, you kind of get a feel for the pencil, hopefully. You can feel if it feels like you're starting to make a bald spot. I mean, sometimes it's just absolutely unavoidable. But sometimes you can just kind of get a feel for like how far you should push it. As I said, it's in the burnishing, which is sort of what we're doing here, the really pressing down of the pencil. It's in the burnishing stage that you most often risk creating a bald spot. And by bald spot, I mean you have removed the pencil and you can kind of see the gesso through it, but there's so much wax, or that area is burnished and you can't get pencil, this kind of pencil, to adhere to it. If my point starts to dull, I just put my piece in the sharpener. Sorry, I was just checking to make sure that whole thing was recording, because that'd be kind of lame if I did all this and it wasn't recording. And sort of medium pressure, and then adding a little bit more pressure. And this time you see I'm not necessarily going all the way to the bottom where the red is going to be. I just, you know, there's really no point. Okay. Now I'm going to add my darker color. And the second I start doing my medium pressure, it's already looking really, really saturated. So you will notice that all your pencils sort of have their own life. Some just work fabulously in this technique, and some, it's like pulling teeth to get them to do anything remotely like what we want them to do. I'm not really sure how far up I want to go. And again, not sure what blending method I want to use. But right now I'm just want to get the red down at the bottom at least. Again, I'm just using medium pressure with this. I have not gone into full burnishing pressure. The red, whatever number this is, 122, called Rouge Permanent, or Permanent Red. Some colors just go on here magically, just like they were meant for this technique. Whereas other ones, not so much. So you can see where we before saw the cross hatching of the gesso. Once we start putting more pressure with the pencils, a lot of that just disappears naturally, so we don't have to worry about it. And again, one of the things I like to do with this technique is pencils can do things that other techniques can't, and one of those is blending. So I want to have all my designs use that advantage. So that's why I like to run from one color into the next. And if I see crumbs, I just get my paintbrush and brush them away. And you know, this is not a short process. You can put in your earbuds and listen to some great music or listen to a book on tape. This doesn't take the same kind of brain work as when you're soldering or something like that. So I actually can listen to books on tape, TED Talks, all kinds of things. Okay, so I've got my second and sort of second, third layers down. Now I want to do blend that red more into the yellow. Just give it sort of a more natural effect so it doesn't look like yellow and then red. So I'm going to start with my blending pencil, and I actually start very lightly. I don't want to just go in with full force because the blending pencil can have an effect. You see how it's just like taking some of the red into the yellow, some of the yellow into the red, and you just get less of a definition of where they're meeting. It's blending them. So if you compare that to that, you will see that there's more of a graduation of color where I've done the blending. A blending pencil is just pure wax, so all that's happening is you're taking the wax colors and smushing them together. Now, I could do the same thing with a stump, but I would tend to use a stump more in large areas because it doesn't have such a sharp point. So if this piece was just a big piece that was blending from one color to the next, I might use a stump. Another thing that the blending pencil is good for is if you have like little bits of white area, if you go over them in this with the blending pencil, it's good for filling in. So like maybe there's something. So it really helps with that. Now like this, I don't know if you can see. Let me take a close-up picture of this before and after blending. Just that one area, because I want to show you what a good job it does filling in where you might have seen texture of the gesso, or where you have white spots. So let me show you before and after. Okay. And now, see there, you can really see the definition between the red and the yellow. So I start at the yellow and just softly back and forth over where they meet, trying to get into the any white areas. Clean the brush off if you get any dark colors on it. I mean, clean the pencil off. Wipe crumbs away. So that's probably where I started. Okay, so it's looking fairly rich and saturated. I might go over the black lines one more time. I'd have to sharpen my black pencil. And then I can see if it'll take any more pencil. But when I have it this saturated, I really don't feel like I need any more pencil. Yes, I am pressing hard, so I will get a little bit of breakage of my pencil lead. And pencils aren't, as fine as a fine Sharpie, so you just have to accept that it's going to look a little different. You can also use black gesso and just leave negative space for outlines if you like. I might go over the I might go over see if I can get a little bit more color in here. Kind of lost my outline there. Kind of lost my outline there too. And then, okay. Now, I don't want to rub my hand over this because that would smear everything together. If it was a piece that like it was just colors where I want all the colors to run together, then it's fine. What was I just going to do? Oh, I feel like it needs a little bit more yellow there. Okay. So if I start trying to put more color on now, it's really not going to be taking any more color. So what I'm going to do is go spray fixative. And I guess I'll show you how I do that too. So it's about 15 minutes since I did the fixative, which is dry now. So what fixative does is it doesn't make your piece impervious to things. It's going to have a lot less smear capability once I put the fixative, but it's not, like I said, you know, a barrier to life, between life and the piece. Now, if this is pretty much done as far as I'm concerned. I mean, the colors are as saturated as I want. However, if I notice a few places, and I'm going to have to bring it up close to my eyes to see. Okay, like there's just a few places where I might want to fill in a little bit. So I can do that now over the fixative, coloring up some white spaces. So yes, you can color on fixative. Not as easily as on gesso in my experience, but it can be done. Okay, so if this is pretty much how I want it, then, and I do see a gesso line where to go. There. Here, I don't know if you can see it, but I'm not going to worry about it. Okay, so that's pretty much done. So at this point I can go, since I did put some pencil down just now, I'll probably go do one more layer of fixative. So I'll do it just like I did a few seconds ago. Well, for you a few seconds ago. I waited for the drying time. Just a light coat of fixative. And then we'll spray the sealant on.